Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar on toy safety. I'm Katrina Phillips and I'm the Chief Executive here at the Child Accident Prevention Trust. We're a national charity that works to stop children being killed or seriously injured in preventable accidents. Now, many of us are counting the pennies these days, but all of us want those smiley faces on Christmas morning. So in this webinar, we'll be exploring how to find safe bargains when we're hunting down those toys on the Christmas wish list. A few things to mention before we start. Please, can you stay on mute and with your cameras off? Make sure you're on speaker view. You'll have seen we're recording this event. The recording will be available later this week. And please use the chat to ask us questions. We'll answer as many as we can. I'm very pleased to be joined by Geraldine Koch and Michelle McKenna, two mums who are both product safety experts. I'll start by asking our two guests to briefly introduce themselves. Geraldine first.
Thank you, Katrina, and thank you for allowing me to be part of this great webinar today. It's lovely to see so many of you, and thank you for your time for attending. Very quickly, I'm Geraldine Koch. I'm a product safety expert. I've been working in product safety for about 18 years now. I've been working on EU projects and international projects for that time. I'm also a mother to two children, which we will talk about. And I've also worked on a number of standards. Standards are really important, and we will talk a bit more about that later on as well. So lovely to meet you all.
Brilliant. Thanks, Geraldine. And now, Michelle, can we have a brief introduction from you, please?
Hi, I'm Michelle McKenna. I'm a Senior Trading Standards Officer with North Lanarkshire Council, and I have lead responsibility for product safety. I'm also a volunteer on the Consumer and Public Interest Network, where I represent the consumer view during standards development. Most recently, I worked on the standard for button and coin cell batteries, which is a product you'll hear more about today. And I'm a mum to a 6 and an 8-year-old.
Brilliant, thank you. So, Michelle, I'm going to turn to you first. Told us you're a mum, you're a trading standards officer. What advice would you pass on to other mums who are shopping for toys this Christmas? What is it that we need to watch out for?
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take you through some of the screening checks that I do whenever I'm looking at products, and hopefully that'll help you identify if you come across any hazards. So the very first thing that I look out for, and I don't know if you'll be able to see on this because it might be a bit back to front, is the CE mark or the UK CA mark. Now that's a mark to say that the product should have been tested and should conform to all the standards, but I also look out for, and this is a really important bit, a UK address, and that is the business in the UK that is saying that they've done the checks to make sure that this product is safe. If I don't see that address or those marks, then that's a red flag for me. So next thing, I'll start with a product that you maybe buy for a baby or a toddler, a lovely cuddly bear. What could possibly go wrong there? So what I would say is, first thing is check, have a pull at the eyes, or if there's any buttons or anything else on it, check that they don't come off. We all know that children explore the world by putting things in their mouth, so you don't want to end up with a small item that's going to be a choking hazard. Next, check if there's any zips or pouches where something could pop out that could be a hazard. Unfortunately, there was a case where a mum had bought a couple of these light up bears from an online marketplace. She had gave it to her toddler and went in and found her toddler in the cot with a cord wrapped around her neck and a huge amount of stuffing in her mouth. Now, thankfully, she averted the tragedy, but what happened was there was a zip at the back of the teddy, and she had been able to get access to the cord that had the light up items attached, It was 1.5 meters long, and there was easy access to the stuffing. On this bear here, you'll see the cord pulls out the eyes, easy access to the stuffing. So it's always worth just doing those checks to make sure there's no hidden hazards in your soft toy. Next is this educational toy for a young child, preschooler age. And the first hazard I see on this is these loose button batteries in the packaging. And that's something that Geraldine will cover a bit more in her presentation. So any batteries that are in a toy should be secured in with a screw. You can see here, there's 2 screws securing in the batteries, so that if a child drops the toy, the batteries don't come loose. And then there's been tragic accidents where children have swallowed these and they've lost their life because they burn through the esophagus. So that's why it's so important that if you have a toy, you check to make sure the batteries are secured with a screw. The next hazard in this is this big long cord. This cord doesn't have a break point, and cords and loops or anything that could be a strangulation risk to children is banned from toys. They're just not allowed. So again, another unsafe toy that's one for avoiding. Next, I'm going to show you these magnetic balls. You might have seen these in the news where the NHS has been calling for them to be banned because they've saw so many children come into accident and emergency after swallowing these balls, and wonder why something so small and how can it be so lethal? So unfortunately, these are super strong magnets that they're often advertised as adult stress relievers and not advertised as toys. Toys have got a standard, a restriction on how strong the magnets can be, and they've got to be encased in something so that if they're put into your mouth, the kid's mouth, they can't be swallowed. Unfortunately, as you can see, these are individual tiny little balls. And when I heard about the instance with these balls, I bought these to have a look at them. And the first thing that my 5-year-old son said was, "Are those sprinkles?" He thought they were sprinkles for the tops of cakes. And when you look at these balls as cake toppers, you can understand why young children maybe will get confused, think they're food and put them in their mouth. And unfortunately, if they do swallow them, they swallow one, swallow another, they go down into their stomach and they draw together. They are super strong balls, so they're just attracted to each other and they rip through the insides of the child, gather together, stopping blood supply and causing a blockage. And unfortunately, whenever they have to be removed, the surgeon has to remove part of the small intestine or the bowel. So it's really, really serious, life-altering injuries that these balls can cause. But recently, it's been children who are 9, 10, 11 who have been presenting at hospital. And you may wonder, why is that happening? When they're at that age, you would think they would maybe stop putting things in their mouth. But unfortunately, there's social media challenges where these kids use them as tongue piercings, as lip piercings, nose piercings, and unfortunately then they are swallowed. So what I would say is just avoid these. Don't have them in your house. They're really a child appealing, and they've caused a lot of injuries. If you do have toys that have got magnets in them, make sure that whatever they're enclosed in doesn't crack open easily, because that's a hazard too. So I've done a really quick run through of the kind of screening checks that you can do and look out for in toys, but there's some things that you can't see, and that's your chemical hazards. And that's where you've got to make sure you're buying from somebody who's reputable, who's going to have been doing all the tests and checks to make sure that that product is actually safe. And we've actually had cause in North Lanarkshire to to raise an alert about these fidget advent calendars. On the back, you can see it has a CE mark, but there was no UK address on it, so there was no one taking responsibility for it. So that was a red flag to one of my officers. So we put it into the public analyst, and unfortunately, this little fidget was found to have really high levels of a dangerous chemical called phthalates. Now, phthalates is a plastic softener, but unfortunately for children and pregnant women, they're really susceptible to this chemical, and it can cause developmental delays, problems with reproductive systems. So that's why the testing of the products to make sure that these dangerous chemicals aren't there is so essential, and buying from a reputable retailer is so important. Unfortunately, we got complaints from parents that had tried to go back to the person that they bought it from on social media, and they were gone. That alert went out, the page closed down. So I would just urge you to make sure that you know who it is that you're buying from. If you buy it and you look at it and you think there's a hazard there, this isn't safe, you want to be able to return it. So it's important that you know where the person that you're buying from is actually based. Do you only just have an email address? Are they actually in the UK? So I appreciate that was a whistle-stop tour of what I would look out for whenever I'm doing toy safety checks, and I'll be here. So if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat and I would be more than happy to answer them for you. Thanks, Katrina.
That's great. Thanks so much, Michelle. That was just so helpful. And I think those practical checks, the things to actually look for, both when you're buying online and when you've actually got the toy in your hands, so helpful to screen out those dangerous toys. And if anyone does have a question for Michelle, please do pop it into the chat. So Geraldine, I'm going to come to you now. What would you add to that, to what Michelle's just told us?
Yeah, thanks, Katrina, and thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I totally agree. Magnets are a big issue at the moment. So I think if anybody sees these, if you've got them in your home or you do a visit, when you're out and about and you see these, please do let the parents know, because they are incredibly dangerous and thousands of children have been injured. Just to add to what the great information that Michelle's explained is, so choking hazards. So obviously the magnets can be a choking hazard, but they tend to go down into the stomach and into the intestines. But you can have items that could lead to an immediate choking hazard, depending on the size and the shape. And what we use in the testing laboratories is something called a small parts test cylinder. It looks a bit like this. I doubt you'll have them in your homes, but toilet roll holder is basically just as good. So fundamentally, if you're trying to understand if something can choke a child or has the capability to, if it fits inside here, then it's possible it can happen. So any small parts to really try and keep those away from children. And of course, if certain things are ingested, if there's chemicals, that's an issue. If they're magnets, if it goes down into the intestine, it's an issue. But another really serious, significant hazard is with button batteries. And Katrina knows a lot about it, and Michelle knows a lot about it. And we were all together working on a standard. It was an honour to be a technical author for that particular standard. And I'm going to show you very quickly what it can do, because I have some ham here. I'm not sure if we were going to surprise you with it later. Is that all right, Katrina, if I show it now? So I'm going to just move my camera down, and you can see this is a piece of ham with 2 batteries in it. And I don't know if you've ever seen this experiment before. So I did this at about 10:30 this morning, so a couple of hours ago, and you can see the significant amount of damage that has been caused. And what this is replicating is, if I was to ingest this, or a child was to ingest this, this is what it would do to your esophagus if it was stuck inside your esophagus. It is a horrific situation. And unfortunately, over 60 children have died globally from this. And it's a horrific thing to happen. If the child swallows it, and the symptoms, they're similar to other issues. So they might be lethargic, they're not eating, that kind of thing. So it's quite difficult to diagnose. So any products that have small coin or button batteries should really be secured into the toy. So Michelle showed a good example there where there was a little screw on there. It's very important to ensure that that doesn't come out of the product. And if it does, then you need to discard of the battery straight away, because even batteries that have been around for a while and have been used can still lead to significant injuries and damage internally. So I think really just one other thing that I would really add to that is about instinct and trusting your gut instinct. I think, you know, we all have that. And if we see a product and we buy a product and we can see bits coming off it, like Michelle showed, then we know there's something wrong with it. Please don't leave it and just think, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. You know, it won't be an issue. If it's bad quality, it's likely to be an unsafe product as well. So I would definitely trust your instinct on these things. And a lot of the products, as Michelle's mentioned with the CE mark, it's saying that it conforms to the standards. So standards are really important. And that's what that's saying. So definitely to look out for the CE and the UK CE mark, and the address is a good idea as well, to look at that on the product as well. Thanks, Katrina.
That's great. Thanks so much, Geraldine. That was absolutely fascinating. And your experiment with the button batteries and the ham, that was really scary, because I think, that gets stuck here in the food pipe and it starts burning through. And I know that we have had tragedies where it's actually burnt through to the main artery and the child has hemorrhaged. So it's really important to do those checks. And we are starting to get some questions now. I'm just going to say to our first questioner, yes, we're recording this webinar and it will be available to view on demand afterwards. So don't fret, we really want to share what Michelle and Geraldine, all this brilliant experience that they're sharing with you. We've got a question about, can we trust high street retailers? You know, people who we find on the high street, will they actually be doing the checks themselves? Is it particularly online marketplaces or our social feeds that we need to take care of? Or, with those high street retail chains, can we trust them?
So I'll answer that one. You will see with high street retailers that they will do recalls. So there will be some times where they'll find that there's a hazard with a product, whether that be a toy or whether it be something else, and they will do a recall because they're a responsible retailer. So what they'll do is they'll monitor the goods that come back to them. And if a hazard, if they come across a hazard or a product that's got a quality issue or something else, then they will tend to do a recall on that product. They will also have systems in place for checking their supply chain to make sure that the products that they are supplying are safe. So your big name brands will tend to do that to protect their brand name and just to be a responsible retailer. So that's why we recommend that you go to a responsible retailer to buy your toys. Someone else who is maybe inexperienced and is just decided to set up a business, how confident are you in them that they know the responsibilities in terms of doing checks? The advent calendar that I showed you there, the retailer was able to give us certificates to say that it had been checked and they were fraudulent. So that's something that we would expect someone that was experienced in supplying toys to be able to recognise. And if they're importing it into the country, they have to make sure they have the technical file, that they're doing checks, that they do their own sample checks and things like that. So really buying from a responsible retailer is the most important thing. And products you buy there should be safe. They have a legal obligation to supply safe goods.
Great, that's really helpful, Michelle. And we've got a question about looking for a UK address on the product, on the packaging when you're looking online as well, I suppose. The question is an EU address okay too?
From January 2021, there should be a UK address on that, and that can be on a leaflet if it's not actually on the packaging or on the product. But from 2021, it should be a UK address. Prior to that, when we were in the EU, it could be an EU address, and that's where the responsible person would be that holds all the technical files and make sure they've done all their safety checks. But now it should be UK.
Great. You see that my cat is very interested in learning more about toy safety. He's a very responsible consumer and he's come to join us. We've got a question about second-hand toys. I don't know if this is one for you, Michelle, or for Geraldine. The question is, I mean, obviously, money is so tight for a lot of people at the moment. Families are struggling. They might go to charity shops or to maybe baby banks to get products. And the question is, how are these products going to be checked? How confident can parents be when sourcing products from them?
The charity shops and those businesses should be doing their own kind of screening checks to make sure that the products are safe, that they have any packaging that's needed with warnings on them, for example. So it really comes down to, again, the checks that these shops and these retailers are doing and the level of confidence that you have in them, but they should be doing screening checks, a bit like what I've done, running through to make sure there's no kind of hazards that they can identify.
Thanks. Geraldine, a question for you, because I know about some of your sort of backgrounds in product safety. So am I right in thinking that safe toys, ones that we can have confidence with, they will have gone through some really rigorous testing to make sure that they're safe before we can actually buy them? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Fundamentally, in order to put a product on the market, a toy, it has to comply with the standards. And it does depend on the business, because it is quite, I mean, we all have our preferences, right? We have our favorite store that we go to. There's a few things that I have in my home, the brand, and it doesn't even matter how much it is. If something happens to that, I'm going to buy that again because of the quality of it. And I think if we try and think about it in the same perspective with safety as well, you know, the information that you're going to get on it, the CE mark is basically saying that it's complied and it complies with the testing. But there are issues, as Michelle has mentioned. You might have fake certificates. It's quite complicated with all the things that they can do. There is a lot of testing it needs to go through for sure. And the products, so you must have held toys that are from big brands, reputable companies, and they feel really good and they feel like good quality, and it is because of the amount of testing that they put into it. Some organizations will go above and beyond, actually, not just the legal minimum, they'll do extra testing themselves. And if you want to try and think about like what I do sometimes with my children's products, I will play with it like my child will. My son is guaranteed to throw it probably at his sister, at the wall. I'm thinking of the animals. You know, we've now got kittens, and I was worried with my hand because they're going to get involved with things as well. So if they can survive children for a couple of weeks, then they're pretty good products. So that's what I would do, is have a look at it, feel it. If the wheels come off of a car, toy car, that's an issue, and it shouldn't really be that way, no matter where it's coming from. I hope that answers your question, Katrina.
That's really helpful, because I suppose we've all got really sort of I think we've all got really good at hunting down bargains.
Yeah.
You know, we've all got our sort of bargain hunting antennae really finely tuned. But I think what you're saying is that sometimes what we're paying for, when we might pay a little bit more for a toy from like a well-known brand, is that actually they've paid out on all of those safety tests. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say that's correct. And I think, you know, and that doesn't mean, I'm not saying you have to only go to the high brands, you know,
No.
and I mean, most of my children's products were actually from, you know, my brother's kids and stuff like that, and hand-me-downs. And what I would do is the internet is amazing. So if you do manage to come across a great toy item, just do a quick Google search on it and just say, you know, this toy, and then recall or safety issues. And if there has been a recall, it will come up pretty easily. And if it is a robust, good toy, it should last for a while, and it's probably perfectly safe to use.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. Now we're getting some quite complicated questions. So I'm going to throw this out and see if either of you want to leap on it. And it goes back to the point about buying from a charity shop. And like, actually, if then you do find that there's a defect, you're worried that the toy isn't safe, should the shop take responsibility for removing or reporting it? Do you go back to the shop, or who do you speak to? Who do you report it to?
If you've got any concerns about an unsafe product that you've bought anywhere, then you should report it to Trading Standards. And you can find your contact details on the Child Accident Prevention Trust website. It's got the contact details for Citizens Direct and Advice Direct in Scotland or wherever you stay. So Trading Standards are really interested in terms of any products that you've bought that you've got a concern about. We're responsible for enforcing the regulations, but also the manufacturer of the product. So that's why the address is important, so that you've got someone that you can contact to let them know that you've had an issue, you've had a problem with the product. So I would report to the manufacturer, and I would also report to local trading standards.
Okay, thank you. And I've got another question about addresses. So the question is, if a product only has an address of a manufacturer, say in China, for example, would this need to be removed from sale until you get, you know, details of the importer in the UK?
Yeah, for it to be legally sold in the UK, it should have a UK address on it. Until it's got that on it, it should be removed from sale, because it's really important that we have product traceability, that we have someone within the UK that's responsible for that product, and responsible for recalling it or withdrawing it or taking any corrective actions, alerting consumers to any risks, and so that if there is a problem with it, then we can follow up with them. So there should be no products, no toys on sale that don't have that UK address on it.
Okay, thank you. And so this is me maybe being a bit picky. What if it's a PO box in the UK? Does that give you any worries at all? Or is that absolutely fine? So we don't actually know where they're based here in the UK, but there's a PO box. Is that okay?
Well, it's about how contactable that business is at that address. So if it is a PO box that's just there because they're trying to make it look like it's a product that's meeting the requirements, then that's a concern. So I think it would depend on the circumstances, really, how contactable someone was at that address.
Right, thanks. Another question that I've got is, and it actually comes from when I was talking to a sort of new member of my team. And I suppose what I've learned from looking into this is that not everything that we can buy online is actually supplied by the platform. Is that correct? So we're not buying from the online marketplace, we're buying from someone else. Is that right?
Yeah, so often the marketplaces are an advertising platform, and you will have lots of different people that are selling. Now that could be a big business, a major brand, or it could be one person sitting with a laptop anywhere really in the world. So, and the responsibility quite often the responsibility for the safety of the product is that person that's selling. So it's important to know who you're actually buying from. Check if you're buying from a marketplace or you're buying from the platform. So it can be quite complicated because some online selling platforms have a kind of mixture of they sell and they have retailers selling. So.
Yeah, it does sound like it starts to get quite complicated, which I suppose is why some of your really practical tests to do at home, I mean, before our children start trying to pull the eyes out of the teddy bears, we should see if actually we can do that ourselves, and we should as in Geraldine's example, we should have our loo roll handy to see if we can put small bits through it and if it might be a choking hazard. So, but so we need to have our antennae out when something arrives, but we also just need to be a bit careful then when we are buying online, because like you say, we could be buying from that big market, we could be buying from a very well-known retailer, we could be buying from a very well-known brand name, or like you said, and it's sort of a bit worrying, there could be someone who's just sat there with their laptop at home anywhere in the world advertising toys for sale, and they may not have gone through all those very rigorous safety checks that Geraldine was talking to us about. Got another question here, and this is we are in the realms of technical, so I said I was going to be quizzing you. So this one is, if a customer, if you're buying a product online, say it's being shipped in from America, would it still need to have that CE mark?
In America, they have a different system. So if you're buying from out, the CE mark is in the CE UK mark is marks that show that they've been tested against the standards in the UK. If you're not buying from the UK, if you're buying from the US, then there'll be different standards that will apply in the US, and they'll not necessarily comply with our standards. We've got quite strict standards for toys in the UK, and similarly that's Europe as well. But anybody else, it's down to what the standards are in those countries and the legislation is in those countries.
Yeah.
It really does depend, and I'll give an example. My husband was on social media and he bought some jigsaw puzzles actually for my children. They were really cool and they pop up on an advert, and I think, I don't know about everyone else, but since COVID has happened, this is happening a lot more, and that's fine, because people their careers have changed and their lives have changed, and now they're starting up businesses and they're selling products, and I think that's great, but they really need to understand what they're doing. And so these products arrived. There were these little jigsaw pieces, a dinosaur one and a fairy one. They were really cool, but they'd come straight from the US, and that's not a problem, but there was no markings on it, there was no address, and there was a lot of dust in the jigsaw. And I just looked at it. I mean, first of all, I looked at my husband and I was like, really? What are you doing? And then I was like, no, you're going to inhale half the jigsaw when you're playing with this. It just wasn't great. And luckily I could contact them again and let them know. But I just think that sometimes they don't understand. And I think I would highly recommend, it's that gut feeling you get. Like when you buy a product, even if it's food or whatever it is, and you're like, that's not great quality, and you're getting that feeling, just then check it, and don't, especially if you have young children, do not leave it with them, because there may be hidden hazards, as Michelle's mentioned, with chemicals and various things that are incredibly toxic. So just to keep an eye out for those. Yeah.
Okay. We've had someone make a point in the chat, and it links to what you've just said about, you know, with COVID, a lot of people have changed careers, and she makes the point about, you know, there are now homemade toys that are sold online. You know, someone set up their own crafting business, but they won't necessarily have had any testing.
And they still need to, and they have to. And sometimes they don't understand that, and they don't know that. So it's not that they're being deliberate, they're just not aware. But I've seen it where you've got natural wood products, and actually I looked at a sample and it had some sort of infestation in it as well. That's why the bigger companies, and it's all great because we are pushing, you know, environmentally friendly, and we want stuff that, but we do have to manage safety as well. So they do need to be safe, and they should be tested, definitely, but sometimes they're not.
Yeah. So I think, yes, we're getting, there's a lot about trusting our instincts here, and knowing that actually wherever it, you know, it really should have been tested, wherever we buy it from, whether it's a high street chain or online, on an online marketplace or out of our social feeds, anything that we're sold, it should be safe, but actually increasingly, because the internet makes it so possible for people to set up businesses and sell us things, actually that isn't really the case anymore, is it? So like I'm old enough to think, you know, it used to be the case that if you could buy it, it would be safe. But it feels like you just have to be a little bit more guarded now. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. We do. I think there's so much. I mean, as well, I think when I was younger, I never had the amount of Christmas toys that my children are going to get. It's like another level. I don't know if that's the same for you or anyone else here on it, but there's just so much exposure to so many things, and but like cheaper things that you can buy them, high quality but yet cheaper. But yeah, we can't assume that everything is safe. You definitely do some checks yourself.
That's great. So, and there's a question, I mean, it's about personalization. So if a trader applies personalization, say to a teddy bear, and they've printed your child's name on the teddy bear, is there anything to be aware of around that? Could, you know, are there any sort of dangers around the print being peeled off, for example?
They do have responsibilities. I'm sure Michelle will add to this, and I can show. I've got my mug. I was just having my tea. I know that you ladies have this one. So this is a mug that I actually got printed from a large company, but it has my business name on it. Now, fundamentally, this is my responsibility. Even though I'm giving them away for my business, I'm still responsible. So if somebody should hurt themselves on it, I've given them the mug. And I think there is a lot more of that now with personalization, which is great, and it's really cute and it's awesome. You think of the teddy bear shops, you know, where you can go and make your own thing, but you can do that safely, and they should do that safely, especially a teddy bear. A teddy bear should be safe for all ages, and children will want to take them to bed with them, like the example that Michelle gave you. So those products, they need to be safe. Highly recommend that they are. And if there's any decals, so if they've kind of ironed on the name or it's coming off, that's not great. It shouldn't be. If it's sewn on and it's really affixed in, then that's fine. So they do have to ensure there's no small parts.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, both of you. That was just That's been so helpful, and your stars for allowing yourselves to be quizzed in this way. I think what I take away from what you've said is just because you can buy something doesn't mean it's safe. And there are actually some really dangerous toys out there, especially on online marketplaces and on our social feeds. So you really do need to have your wits about you when you're doing your Christmas shopping. And I've come away thinking there are particular types of toys that you need to be really careful about. So the magnetic toys, because those super strong magnets can rip through a child's belly. And Michelle was saying, if you've got those magnetic balls, they're really dangerous. Like, really do think twice. And if you're buying those magnetic building blocks, make sure that they're strong, that when your son throws his building block at the wall, that it isn't going to smash and release that super strong magnet. Also, button batteries, because if a child swallows one, it can burn through their food pipe, just like it did with that ham. And safe toys will have gone through lots of tests to make sure they comply with UK safety standards. So, for example, toy that's powered by a button battery to be tested to make sure that that battery isn't accessible, that the battery compartment is properly screwed down. But I think I've also learned there's no guarantee that cheap toys you can buy on an online platform will have been put through those safety tests. And also that not everything that you buy from the online platform is actually supplied by that platform. So it's the point that both of you have made really strongly. When you're buying online, you need to know who you're buying from. You need to check, is it a company you've heard of? Have they got an address in the UK or Europe? Do they actually give an address at all, or are they addressless? And then get those instincts out. When the product arrives, check it. And if you've got a gut feeling that something doesn't look right, a cord that's too long, button batteries that are easy to get to, send it back. And if it's dangerous, report it to trading standards. So I've really learned a lot today. I'd really like to thank Geraldine and Michelle for sharing all of their knowledge and expertise with us. I'd like to thank everyone who's joined us today. We'll contact you as soon as the recording is available. And please go out, talk to people, share what you've learned. And when the webinar recording is available, please share that far and wide. We really want to help people buy safe toys and avoid the dangerous ones. So finally, I'd like to encourage everyone to visit our website for more advice and resources on how to avoid dangerous toys. And please follow us on social media if you don't already. Thank you.